So I remember that. I mean, I remember when I was backslidden, and when our cousin got killed, we were there. The whole family was getting together, and we're there. And I remember talking to him, and he asked like, "Hey, what are you doing for God?" And I was backslidden, and I remember that hit me hard.
Really?
Yeah, because he had asked me a second time, like, "Hey, what are you doing? Are you preaching? Are you still calling to preach?" And I was backslidden. I didn't want nothing to do with God. And I remember him asking that. But for me, it wasn't like that. It was, you know how to play the part. And granted, I wasn't crazy. You know what I mean? I wasn't doing drugs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But you knew when to play, when to put on the act. You know, at church, you can act like a good kid. And then out in the world, you do what you want to do.
Okay.
That's cool.
Church mode on.
Yeah, exactly. You can put your finest on the Sunday. You dress up nice and you act like everything's okay. But
Yes, sir. No, sir.
you go out to school and you do your thing at school.
Is there anything that like sticks out to you that, okay, when you guys got married, when you did it right, is there anything that sticks out that you were like, this is what God wanted it to be? Like, is there anything
that stuck out? No, it was just more the satisfaction of knowing that what we did was right in God's eyes.
Okay.
And knowing that there was a blessing on it. So
That's
as far
awesome.
as anything stuck out right away, no. But it was more the satisfaction knowing that, okay, God, I'm doing right in your eyes. Like, because I've already messed up before.
Right.
And so it's like, no, I'm going to do it right.
Yeah. Good stuff. Welcome back to a brand new episode of Life Speaks. I'm your host, Casey Case, and here's the other host. Introducing the new host. This is Miss Liz.
Hello.
How you doing, Miss Liz?
What? One of the
new hosts. Before we get into it, I want to shout out our sponsors. LifeSpeaksPodcast.com. Check us out. Drop us a comment. Drop us a like. If you want to donate, you can donate some money on there. We would greatly appreciate it. Check us out. The Choosing Hope Foundation. Man, doing big things out there. Wrapped around the prison ministry. Parolees, where you at? Stand up. Helping out. Doing big things out there. The Potter's House Christian Fellowship, GRA, Greater Randolph area. Shout out, come and see us, 2025 Universal City Boulevard. Man, we there, and God is moving. And now we're going to get into our show. We have a very special guest, brand new launched, Pastor Leonard. Man, everybody, yay! How you doing, Pastor Leonard?
Doing good. Yourself?
I'm doing well. It's an honor to have you here. Thank you so much. I went over to Houston. I seen your church. Beautiful.
Thank you.
I didn't get to see your sermon, so I'm going to talk to her about that. You need to get that to me.
I thought I sent it
No,
to
you didn't, and I'm mad.
Sorry.
But hey,
I sent it to
we're
as much
gonna.
people as I can
I'm
think
going to watch it because I want to see it.
right,
Man,
thank
congratulations, by the way, man.
Yes.
That's
Thank you.
awesome. I heard you had your first sermon.
Yeah, it was
So,
good.
how did that go, by the way?
The first service?
Yes.
It was good. My family was there and
Praise
my wife, and so it was a little nerve-wracking, but it was good to, I guess, get that next chapter in
Okay.
being there. That we have the church, we have our services now.
Nice.
So it was just good to kind of cross that next step, I guess you could kind of say.
Yeah.
I thought
Kinda
it flowed really good. Like
Did it?
like for their first service, like it was just like a regular service. You know how like sometimes when you do a service but like, oh, I forgot to do this or oh, this kind of went a little wonky or whatever, like it was just like a normal service.
Smooth sailing.
Just
Nice.
I was even like, did you guys practice your songs beforehand?
Dang.
Actually, we did.
Did you?
Y'all did?
Because I
Yeah,
was
our
like,
mother church. That's how
it
we
flowed. It flowed very
discipleship.
well.
That's my mother church. You go in an hour before, you do your song service practice, and then you go pray.
Yeah.
And so
Oh,
that's
cool.
That's what we did. Get
Stuck
there,
to
do our
the
song
plan.
service. Yeah. and then
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
pray.
it went very well. I was very
I like
proud
that.
of
That's
both
awesome.
of them.
Man,
Of course, my mom cried like the entire time. Like, song service, and she was like, "I'm not gonna cry." And as soon as song service started, there she is, all asking my
poor
dad for
Miss Ellie.
tissue.
Hey,
and
Miss
it was
Ellie.
good.
Man.
Like,
Well, let's get into you grew up in the church, right?
Yes.
Grew up in the fellowship.
Yes.
So, man, you have just been here your whole life,
Yes.
and God has just been moving through your life since
Yeah.
you came out the womb. Huh?
Came out the womb. Yeah, I was. Angels brought me out.
Man, yes, yes, it's an honor to be in your presence.
Yeah, it was great. No, no, but yeah, I was born and raised in the fellowship. My parents just met in the fellowship, got married, and me and my sister came along.
Awesome, that's cool.
Yeah.
Man, what was it like growing up in the church?
I mean, it
Did
was
you get
everything
picked
I
on,
know.
like, say, at school and stuff? Did you get picked on or anything?
No. In fact, so when I was really young, we had one of the same guys that went to the church. They both, because we were originally going to Santa Fe Church, but we lived in Pewaukee. And so one of the young guys that actually went to church with us, they lived in Pewaukee too. So when it was kindergarten, and I still remember actually both of us going to the playground and actually witnessing to kids on the playground. Yeah.
Really?
I actually remember, that's probably one of the only memories I have of kindergarten, going to Pewaukee, because after kindergarten, and then after kindergarten, then we started going to Santa Fe for elementary school. So first grade was in Carlos
awesome.
Gilbert.
Oh, for you.
First grade for me. You
Yeah.
were, I think, a couple of grades in Pewaukee.
Yeah, yeah.
But for me, it was just kindergarten, and then the first grade was already at Carlos Gilbert.
Oh, okay. Are you talking about James?
Yeah, James.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
James Gutierrez.
Dude, that is
So,
awesome.
yeah.
So you was like, at a young age, you had that boldness already.
Yeah, well, I had the bullet. So I think more because I was more quiet as a kid. I wasn't very outgoing. I was more,
Shy.
I was shy. If I didn't
But
know
you'll
you,
tell somebody about Jesus.
so I think my buddy was the one that I played off of him. So since his confidence was going out, like he was more outgoing, so I was able to play out. Like it gave me the boldness to kind of do the same thing.
I've been, Nico's boldness is contagious. I've went off at that before.
yeah, 'cause
Shout
I look
out
at, like-
Little Big Red, where you at? Yeah.
But even like Pastor Alfado's
Yeah.
confidence, I love his confidence. That the
Yeah.
fact that he,
I love his exuberance.
yeah,
man. That's
just
awesome.
I thank God that he was
Pastor
my door
Daniel.
director when he was here. Like because he pushed me out of my comfort zone. A lot of guys push me out of my comfort zone, but he was more the type that he'd put you on the spot, and you're just kind of like you had nowhere to go. Like you're just stuck doing it. Like, but it was the push that I needed to do some stuff.
Okay.
Same thing with Juan, Pastor Juan. He helped me out with that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they pushed me past getting the comfort zone. Pastor William.
Oh, man. So you had some pretty good mentors along the way.
I've been blessed.
Oh, man. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
Pastor William was my Bible study leader and helped me write my first sermon going to the prison.
Nice.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
As a kid, like, did you have like the children's church? Yeah, was it children's church children's Sunday
we had
school or anything?
we had Sunday school Sunday morning and then children's church on
Was
Sunday
it
night.
at a young age? So you had like a basic understanding, or was it more in depth?
So it's more, I think, from what I recall, is just a basic.
Okay.
Basic. From what I remember, it's kind of hard to, knowing what I know now, trying to remember when I learned it. But to me, it was, I want to say it was just a basic.
Do you remember the
understanding.
first verse you learned?
I would say it's John 3:16 was probably the first one.
What is it?
Oh my goodness!
You
For
forgot.
God so loved the world, they gave His only begotten Son. Whoever believe in Him shall not perish, have everlasting life.
Yeah, he remembered.
You put me on the spot. I was like, oh no. Yeah.
Yes, that's awesome. Hey, he still remembers. He's doing good.
Golly, man.
Good pastor. Great pastor.
He did that, not me.
Yeah, thank you. That was on the spot. I was like, oh no, my mind went blank.
Your eyes even raw.
I was like, oh, it's like, do I remember it?
That's pretty cool. Because I learned that at a young age.
Yeah,
I think, yeah, as a kid, like that's usually the verse that everybody kind of in Sunday school. I mean, I think I remember that. I think that was probably the first verse I learned too. Was, you know what I mean? Just because.
Yeah, I
Y'all
think
weren't
that was-
in the same Sunday school.
No, there was always age groups.
Oh,
So
okay.
the church we were in, it was a bigger church than ours. So they had age grade. I think it was like gone by like school grades.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so
okay.
we're 2 years apart. So Leonard's my brother, by the way. If anybody doesn't know this, he's my little brother.
Yeah.
Fathead, the booger brain. Yeah. So we were always in different. But children's church, it was everybody.
Children's church was everybody.
It was
okay.
everybody.
Children's church was everybody. Sunday night, but yeah, Sunday school was age groups or grades.
Oh,
And so it
okay.
was all different groups. So yeah, we never.
But I have to admit, with Sunday school, I don't know if all those memorizations really stuck for me. I don't know how you feel about that. I just know I would like cram it in on Saturday, maybe Sunday morning on the drive to church, just because I wanted a prize. And not really because I had the understanding of, you know, you need the word in your heart. You need it in your mind, for trials, whatever, later on in life. But so as a kid, I was just like, I just want a prize. And then I would say when I got older, maybe like 4th, 5th grade, preteen, when you start getting your attitudes, that I was just like, there's nothing good in the goodie box, so I don't even want to try. You know what I mean? And it wasn't really this, I had a hungering for God. It was more just like, I just wanted the prize. So I don't, was that?
In all honesty, I don't think I even remember remembering verses. I don't think I ever took the time to actually remember them. I was just like, whatever. Like, I don't remember actually remembering the verses.
Yeah.
I might have, but
So you never got a prize?
I don't think I ever got the prize. No. I don't think I ever got the gold star.
Dang.
But I just don't remember that being something. Like, in all honesty, I don't remember actually remembering any of the verses. I don't remember taking the time to actually remember. That wasn't, sad to say, that wasn't priority. It just was it's just like, it wasn't.
What was you more focused on? Like just hanging out with your friends and stuff like that?
I mean, because we had a good childhood.
Yes.
And so I loved, we grew up.
Praise God.
We grew up kind of, I wouldn't say straight up country, but we lived out when kind of in the open area, like a country. Milwaukee's kind of out in the middle of nowhere.
It's like 20 minutes away from the little city that the church was in.
Oh, okay.
So we got to spend all the time outside.
So everybody knew everybody.
Yeah, and so my next door neighbor was like Joseph. He was the same age as me, so we were like best friends. So
was he in the fellowship too?
No, he was just a neighbor.
He was just a neighbor.
Okay.
Yeah, he didn't.
Did you ever witness to him?
Man, honestly, I don't even remember witnessing to him. I don't recall witnessing to him. I want to say I probably did, just because if I was able to do it with Joseph or with the James, you know what I mean? Like, I want to say that I probably did. He probably knew some. But as far as, man, that's a long time ago.
I don't think it was like a straight up witness like you're thinking now, like as like you need Jesus, or this is what God has done in my life and what God has brought me out of, kind of thing. I think it was more like his parents drank and smoked. His dad would smoke and drink and leave the beers and the cigarettes on the porch and stuff like that, and they cussed a lot. So it probably was more like, oh, you shouldn't cuss, that's not good, or drinking's like, I don't think it was like a
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't think I witnessed as far as like I gave my life to Jesus Christ. I was on my way to hell and you need to get saved. Like, you know what I mean? God saved me. I don't think it was anything like that. I think it was more literally the kind of like the real basic, like I go to church, no, I don't drink, we don't smoke. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that, like something like a little kid would tell his friend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But as far as like a hardcore witness, I don't think it was ever anything like that.
Did you notice the cigarettes and the beers and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
What were your thoughts on that whenever you seen it? Because you didn't grow up around anything like that, right?
No. But it was, I didn't really think anything of it. Like
Really?
it didn't, no. So what I remember though is more them like screaming at him and stuff like that. Like he,
Wow.
Yeah.
What did you think about that?
He was my friend. So I just know he's messing. And granted, we weren't the best kids. Like we would mess around too. But I know he was just messing with his mom. You would hear his mom screaming and you just know he's doing something just to.
He was an only child. So I think he was a little spoiled, but then yes, me and Leonard, you know, we're a little bratty ourselves. You know, we like to pick on people if we can. We see an opportunity and we take it. And so she Pobrecita wasn't, I think, the brightest woman. And so one day, because it was a trailer park, and so we were knocking on all the windows, but we'd go from one window and she'd come. She was inside the trailer. We were on the outside, all three of us. And we would knock and she'd go to that window and yell at us, and then we'd just go to the next window. But she was inside the house following us, and my mom heard, and I mean, I remember her yelling at us to knock it off, to leave her alone. Yeah. But I mean, she never came out. She was just yelling at us from inside of the house. So Joseph was a little bratty, and like, you would hear him.
Yeah, he was bratty, but he was my friend. But we would just go out. Like that wasn't my priority. Like, sad to say, that was. My priority was just having fun, going out in the mountains and just going hanging out.
Being a kid.
Yeah, being a kid. Like, it was just, very innocent, just hanging out. Like, just.
But that is such a blessing, because we were sheltered, right? Yeah. To a certain extent. You know, we were exposed to things just because it's life. But that we didn't have to think about, oh, mommy and daddy doing this, or, oh, we're no food, or, oh, where are we going to live? And so literally, it was just, let's just go outside and have fun. You know what I mean? And we weren't exposed to a lot of that aspect of life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we didn't have to think of stuff like that. You know what I mean? Of just
not only just our family, like my parents and then me and my sister, but also on my dad's side, because we're close with my mom's side. but they're scattered all over the United States. So my dad's side, they're in Santa Fe, so we're close knit. I mean, like it's everybody's there. We always see them practically every weekend. You run into everybody at grandma and grandpa's house, but they were Christian. They didn't drink, they didn't smoke. You know what I mean? They had good value. They were Christian. So we were sheltered on that too. Like, so you know how sometimes like, yeah, you have a Christian family, but yeah, you go with your extended family, they're drinking, all that stuff. So, you know what I mean? But we were really sheltered in the extent of not only our immediate family, but also our extended family too. They were Christian too. A lot of them were Christian, not all of them, but a majority of them were. So family events, there wasn't drinking. You wouldn't go to my grandma's house and grandpa's house and they'd be smoking or drinking. You know what I mean? Like you just wouldn't do that. So we were sheltered on that level too, no matter, not only at our immediate family, but when we go to grandma and grandpa's, nobody's drinking there either. Yeah. So we were blessed in that we didn't have to worry about that either. You know what I mean? That you go family events and chaos is happening because certain peoples are drinking. You know what I mean? Like uncles are drinking, all that stuff, and it was a blessing in that too.
Yes.
It was sheltered.
That's really cool. I think that's powerful. You come from a long line of fellowshippers.
Yeah.
No,
well, they actually weren't fellowship.
They weren't in the fellowship.
Really?
My grandparents were Spanish Assemblies of God.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Catholic?
No.
Christian.
Really?
Yeah. But yeah, in fact they weren't always saved. I believe it was my aunt Lulu, the oldest, because my dad there's 9 brothers and sisters, both on my mom and my dad's side. And so my dad's oldest sister, Lulu, my auntie Lulu, I think she was the first to get saved. Okay. And then she brought in, I think, my grandparents, and then everybody just kind of after that came in. Because my daddy wasn't saved at first. No. Either in his life. His bratty brothers and sisters will tell us, you know, stories of my dad in his wild days. You know what I mean? And so he didn't come to know Christ till later. I want to say he was like 27, or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was older already.
Yeah.
Well, not old, but
he wasn't in his teens. Yeah.
And that was before y'all were born.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So him and my mom came into the church there in Santa Fe. I think 3 months apart or 4 months apart, and they got married, and then I think they only courted for 3 months, and then they got married.
Yeah, it was something. Yeah,
it was pretty quick.
Yeah, back in the day, they would just get them married right off the bat, get them married quick. And so. Get them married quick.
I know why she's looking at me.
Well, 6 months, that's the minimum, Casey.
I figured I know why she's looking at me.
I know why she's looking at me.
She means well, Casey.
I know she does.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so we were
Did y'all have any family members that were like, that would encourage y'all to be like, hey, man, God's got a calling on your life?
Man, that's crazy that you mentioned that. So my uncle Leroy.
My
uncle.
I got an uncle named Leroy.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, not Uncle Leroy. So I had an Uncle Leroy. My Uncle Lalo.
Okay.
My Uncle Lalo one time. And man, that's crazy. So I remember having a conversation with him, and I told him that God called me to preach.
Really?
Yeah, I told him.
How old are you?
Man, I don't even remember that. I haven't thought of that in a long time.
Really?
But yeah, he actually. So I remember that. I mean, I remember when I was backslidden, and when our cousin got killed, we were there. The whole family was getting together, and we're there. And I remember talking to him, and he asked like, "Hey, what are you doing for God?" And I was backslidden, and I remember that hit me hard.
Really?
Yeah, because he had asked me a second time, like, "Hey, what are you doing? Are you preaching? Are you still calling to preach?" And I was backslidden. I didn't want nothing to do with God. And I remember him asking that. Yeah, so my uncle, the only one that I remember, I mean, all my family always encouraged me. My uncle and aunts, they always have always encouraged me. But I remember my uncle Lalo was the only one that I remember that had asked what God was calling me to do. And I remember I told him God called me to preach. I think he was the first one that I ever told that I ever outspokenly told.
Said it out loud, yeah.
I think he was the first one.
What did he tell you? Did he like give you some encouragement? Be like, yes, man, you do that.
Yeah, he did. He told me, he's like, that's going to be good. God's going to use you.
Man,
I remember. I haven't thought of that in years. But yeah, he was the one. Before I think I even told my parents, he was the one that I think I first told.
Was that like uplifting whenever he told you that? Like,
yeah,
I needed to hear that.
Yeah, well, I mean, because I was always shying away from my calling. I never wanted to be a pastor. In all honesty, so when we grew up in the church, there was a church split that happened when we were younger.
Yeah,
and so when that happened, it just, when I was that age, all I understood was, man, I'm not going to see my friends anymore. Some of my friends are leaving. Some of my friends are staying with the fellowship. Some of my friends are staying with the pastor that left. And so that's all I really cared about. And so, but when I saw the chaos and all that stuff in my mind, I was like, man, I don't, my parents are pillars. They're called to be pillars. So in my mind, I'm good being a pillar. Like that's what I'm going to do. But yeah, I was never.
What was it like? Why did you fight it? Like, was there like something like, oh, I don't want to deal with this, or like in general that you saw maybe a pastor having to deal with? Was it something like that, or were you just being stubborn?
So I think it was a combination of all of that.
Really?
Yeah, because in my mind, growing up in the church, and when the church split happened, I think I saw a little bit more with. And I was never a pastor's kid, so I didn't see that side of it. But I saw enough to where I'm like, I don't want to be a pastor. I don't want the response. I know that they're held to a higher standard. Like they're going to be held responsible for the people that are under them. You know what I mean? Like that's why the responsibility. And I didn't know if I was 100% in. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And so I didn't want the responsibility of being accountable, responsible for other people under me.
Yeah.
And I just didn't. I wanted to do my own thing. I didn't want to be a pastor. I didn't want the responsibility. I didn't want to dedicate myself to do that. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. You know what I mean? Like I wanted to just have my fun.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Just didn't want to go with it.
Yeah.
So I got a question. How old were you when the split happened? Because I think I was like 15. So you were like 13?
Something like that, yeah.
So I know I had just started. For me during that time, I had just like really gotten saved. Because it was right out of junior high. Junior high, I was not saved. Into high school, and I was making stands, and I had gotten saved. Christina, you remember my friend Christina? Her youth pastor, I think his name was Mike from Christian Life. He was coming to the high school and having Bible studies at the high school once a week, and so I would go to that. Did you? But you didn't go because you were still in junior high.
I was still in junior high.
Okay, so I remember getting involved. I was in the skit team, and I remember, I was involved, I was saved, I was finally kind of in it for real this time, you know what I mean? And then the split happened, and then I remember that devastated me, and then made me question a whole lot of things. You weren't really in ministry, were you doing, you were?
Yeah, because I was in the play in Nuestra Familia.
That's right.
And then I was also doing the children's church, not children's church, it was, so the older kids were children's church, and I forgot what the younger group was, but we did it on Wednesday nights. So it was, I forgot what they called it, but it was kind of like children's church, but it was the younger age group. So the older kids were on Sunday night, but on Wednesday night, that's when Pastor Josh and Melanie were leading that children's church, or like the kids group on Wednesday night.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, so I was with them on Wednesdays, and then I was also in the place. I was in the play Nuestra Familia.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that.
So I think that was the only two ministries that I was in at that time.
So when the split happened, where was I going with this? Sorry.
When you talk about the split, what are you talking about?
So the pastor that were originally in Santa Fe, he left the fellowship.
Oh.
He left, yeah.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah,
it was a big split.
It was part of, you probably hear the services, when the pastors talk about the 90s split, that's the split. It was part of that split that they talk about.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a big deal. So Pastor Benny's pastor, he's the one who left.
Yeah.
So it was him, and then he had all his baby churches. So Pastor Benny, Pastor Wakefield in Austin, and then some other guys that I don't know if you're familiar with or anything, but those are the two that I know those two.
Well, Pastor Upton.
Oh, and Pastor Upton. I forgot.
Upton
Yeah, Pastor Upton.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know him, but I know.
Well, you know who
I know
he is,
one of his baby church pastors.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So when that happened, they stayed in the fellowship. So then I believe they just went under Prescott, and Prescott became their lead or whatever. But when that happened, it was a big thing. It rocked the Santa Fe Church.
Really?
Yeah, it really did.
So I actually remember that day when they finally called it. When they finally outspoke behind the pulpit, we're leaving the fellowship, because it was a Sunday morning, and I remember he said it, everybody cheered.
Cheered.
And I remember getting in the car. We had the Dynasty.
Yep.
So I remember sitting in the back seat, and I remember my mom crying as we're driving off the property
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
after the service. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that.
How did you feel about it? How did y'all feel about that?
Like I said, in my mind, I don't think I truly grasped what was happening other than I'm no longer seeing my friends on that. Because
You don't remember mom and dad talking to us?
so I don't remember them really talking to us about it. I remember bits and pieces. I remember like that when they announced it. And then I remember when Pastor Mitchell, Pastor Joe Campbell.
Oh, that meeting.
When they had the meeting. I remember that.
Yeah.
And so I remember when that happened.
Yeah. So I remember, because again, I was finally getting, saved and doing something for God in ministry. And I remember being so hurt because I was in skit team. So every Saturday we had our concert scene, and I'd be like, Mom, are you going to come? And she was like, nope, we're not going. We're not going. And I remember in my mind, one of the battles that I had was I thought Mom and Dad were backsliding.
So I remember that conversation.
I thought they were backsliding because they weren't. I think they were maybe going just like Sunday mornings. I would believe I was driving because I don't remember Mom taking me to skip practice. So I think I was already driving then.
Yeah, probably.
And so I remember that being not a trial, but
a chapter in your life.
yeah, well, I don't know about a whole chapter, but me struggling, like a struggle,
Yeah,
because
struggle.
I thought, oh no, Mom and Dad are backsliding. And then I think she saw it, and then that's when they had the conversation with us.
Yeah.
Like, so this is what's been going on. We're backing away because we want to see what plays out, I guess, kind of thing. And then on that Sunday service when they announced, and my mom said, we're staying in the fellowship. She had told us that in the conversation.
Yeah.
And so, I remember crying, but I think it was more because my friends, you know what I mean? And then maybe the unknown too of what's going to happen to us, because the part of it too was they kept the building. So even though they left the fellowship, they
They
kept
got
the
the
actual
building.
church building.
Okay.
So all the ones that stayed in the fellowship, we had to leave. We weren't
okay.
welcome anymore. So we had to, for a while, we bounced around different hotel lobbies and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, we would set up every Sunday. You would set up, and so it was. How would you say? For me, it was crazy seeing it, but it was. You saw a lot of new pastors. So like Pastor Artie Aragon,
yes.
he would come and cover services.
Okay.
So I never knew him. You know what I mean? But we got to know him because of that.
Okay.
And then you'd have other pastors come in and cover services. So each Sunday or Wednesday, they would send a new pastor.
Okay.
So if a pastor came in on, like, he was going to preach a Sunday service, he would come in, and depending on where he was at, he would probably stay. He would stay for both services, preach those both services. Then he would like spend the night, I guess, and then leave. But if he was close by, he would just come and preach, and then he would leave.
Okay.
But yeah, so I don't remember how long it was until Pastor McCarthy came in.
I want to say it was maybe like 1 or 2 months, or maybe even just 1 month. I don't think it was really
Wasn't
that long.
Yeah, I kind of honestly, I don't remember. I don't remember.
Did you have a relationship with your pastor?
No.
No, he was.
Not like that?
Yeah, no, he was. No.
He was one of those pastors that you didn't talk to.
Yeah.
Like he didn't talk to us.
Yeah,
As
he
Really?
wasn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
he wasn't.
Huh.
Yeah,
Because he never so and then we were kids too.
Interesting.
We were
Yeah.
kids too, so he's not gonna talk to the kids.
He was more, from what I remember. I remember him. He was more ruled by fear. Now I've heard other testimonies where he was very gracious to other people, but when I was, and granted, me and Nathan were probably causing problems, but that's what I remember him. I remember him. The instance that I remember having a conversation with him was when we accidentally were playing in the prayer room, the concert room, threw the ball, and it went into where the office was at, and his dog came out, and he was just, he was all mad or whatever. But as far as like one-on-one, like how I have a relationship with my pastor, no, it wasn't anywhere close. But you're also talking about a church that was running, what, about 200-300 people?
Yeah.
Whoa.
I think something like that. It was big.
It was a big church.
It was a big church. Yeah.
Whoa.
So I'm this little kid. So he's busy taking
You
care
just
of big
blend
stuff.
in pretty good.
Yeah. And so I wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't. I didn't have a close relationship with him.
Oh, okay.
I think too, because it was big. Me personally, I played the part very well.
Yeah.
as like, oh, Liz is a good kid. Like I wasn't terrible. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't like
The
doing.
truth comes out.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
I'll
wasn't.
Let's hear it.
I wasn't
got
doing
some stories.
he does. I wasn't like doing like bad things, but I wasn't saved. You know what I mean? But I could play the part. I don't know.
Okay.
As a church kid, I think
You know how to
learn
play.
you learn
You
how
know.
to play the part very well because that's our
Dang.
norm. But that's our norm. Do you know what I
Okay.
mean? Growing up in church, I think any church kid, that's our norm. We're used to church. This is normal. This is not a relationship. This is just what we do. Because I feel for my testimony, it had to come to a point where then it was a relationship with God. I knew God. I knew the rules to follow, and I could play the part. But that was my morning. Every Sunday, every Wednesday, you went to church, and this is how we ran the church. It was more of a routine or something. It wasn't genuine, I guess. You know what I mean? And so you have to. I think that's a battle.
You know the right stuff to say.
Yes.
Oh,
So I think a lot of church. Now, granted, I don't think every church kid was like that.
Fake it
but
till you make it.
Yeah, but because there's some kids that got like genuine conversions right off the bat, that were 100% in. But for me, it wasn't like that. It was you know how to play the part. And granted, I wasn't crazy. You know what I mean? I wasn't doing drugs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But you knew when to play, when to put on the act. You know, at church you can act like a good kid. And then out in the world, you do what you want to do.
Okay.
At school,
Church
yeah.
mode on.
Yeah, exactly. You can put your finest on the Sunday. You dress up nice and you act like everything's okay. But
Yes, sir. No, sir.
you go out to school and you do your thing at school.
Cuss.
Yeah,
That was my thing at school.
Oh man.
Yeah. That
Oh
was
man. Potty mouth over here.
yeah.
Okay, so you would put on the church kid like, I'm ready to do this for Jesus, but you wasn't really in it.
No.
When did you start getting in it?
So I think, because like I said, I wasn't a bad kid as far as wasn't drinking or anything like that, but I wasn't 100% in as far as like salvation. I was doing right, but I don't think my heart was 100% in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until so when the split happened, like I said, Pastor Artie Aragon would come in to cover services. So he got pretty close with our family.
Yes.
And so when his son passed, we went to Chinle, Arizona for the funeral. Mm-hmm. And so I remember actually going to the thing and
Did you know his son?
No, I didn't know his son. I've never met his son. But we went for him. Mm-hmm. Or at least as far as I know. I don't think my mom and dad ever met his son, but it was more for him since he was the one that we knew. And so we went to his son's funeral. I remember going, and if I remember right, it was the tent. They had the tent set up, and he was sick at the time. He had something, I think it was a blood clot or something. So I remember him sitting off on the stage, and Pastor Wayman Mitchell preached the actual funeral. Mm-hmm. And so when Pastor Mitchell pulled the altar call, that was the first time where I was confronted. I made a real decision. It's like, man, if I die, I'm going to go to hell. And it's like, and that was the first time it's like, man, I was like, I need to get my heart right with God. So when I answered, so I lifted my hand when he pulled altar call. And when I actually stood up, that was the first time God actually called me to preach. Oh, okay. And I remember that, it's like a picture still in my head that I remember him, that whole situation as far as answering the altar call and God calling me to preach on that day.
Oh,
but that was the first time
awesome.
I actually got real serious. I was like, man, okay, I need to serve God.
How'd you feel about that whenever you...
So the whole calling thing, I kind of shrugged off as far as like, that was just me thinking. That was just a thought that crossed my mind, which
I feel that's normal.
Yeah. And so, because I've never thought that. And so, but what later on down the road when I finally accepted that, I kind of started accepting God's call me, because I always remember that moment. And so, you have, in my mind, it's like, that wasn't just any situation. That wasn't just any moment, because I can remember it so vividly. You know what I mean? So that was a very impactful. So I know that was God that called me, because it wasn't just you have thoughts all the time in life, but the fact that I can remember that so vividly, it's like, okay, no, I know God called me that day. I know it was God calling me, because it wasn't just a random thought. You have random thoughts all the time, and you can forget it. You can have moments and you forget it. But that moment, I can still, it was always ingrained in my heart, in my mind, that I can remember God calling me.
That's pretty cool.
But that was the first time I actually got saved, where I was like, okay, I'm going to serve God.
Okay. What'd you start doing after that? Like,
So-
did you have more boldness? Did you step your game up or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's when we started doing Bible studies at the school. So I had a buddy,
Battle buddy.
Alfredo Carmona, and so no, this was the other one had left, but Alfredo and some other guys, and so Micah and all them, we started doing the Bible studies.
So Alfredo wasn't part of the fellowship.
Yeah, Alfredo wasn't part of the fellowship.
He was this young man. I think he's still there at Christian Life.
Yeah.
Because we've
Really?
ran
think
into
so.
him
He
a
was just
couple of
another
times.
Christian.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so he
from
was
another
genuinely
church.
saved. He
Yeah.
was
Really?
he was radical. He was genuine. He was
boldness.
genuine conversion. Yeah, he had a boldness.
That's pretty cool.
And so yeah, he was a cool. So in ROTC we were friends, and so that helped. Got help, but yeah, we started doing Bible studies, and even Pastor McCarthy would come in.
Yeah.
He would do a couple of Bible studies for us.
He
Yeah,
took
we
over
opened the door.
from Alfredo's pastor, who was Pastor Mike,
Yeah.
who was part of because he got sent out.
Okay.
And so that's why he had stopped doing it. And then
Pastor
Pastor
McCarthy came in.
Yeah.
And he was doing Bible studies.
At the
But
high school.
that was that. Yeah, that, and then just getting involved in church. I think that's when we started a group. We started doing a band there. Me and Nathan and Micah, and then
I forgot about you
yeah,
guys.
we
What was your
started
band
Kinda-
called?
Blitzkrieg.
What is it?
Blitzkrieg.
Blitzkrieg?
Yeah, Blitzkrieg. Yeah, it was the.
Was y'all rocking?
Oh, we thought we were.
Yeah.
I remember
was
Hannah
right.
doing your photo shoot for
Oh,
you guys.
yeah,
in
Hannah.
in the back of the
Back of
truck
the
and
Tacoma
Yeah.
on the train tracks walking.
Oh,
I
man.
think it was Micah carrying the bass or something like that, and
I don't
Oh,
remember.
that was horrible.
Did you play the drums?
yeah, it was drums.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Nathan was guitar and
Nice.
vocals, Micah was bass, and I was drums.
Do you remember any of your songs?
Oh no, I don't remember any of them.
Did y'all write y'all's own songs? Or
Yeah,
just
yeah, we
remix?
did. Yeah,
What?
So he was
That's
what? You
awesome.
were 14, 15 at this time?
yeah, something like that. Yeah,
Yeah. So, I mean, they're still young. They were
Man,
still
that's
really
awesome,
young.
though.
young, yeah. And so we started our group, and then I think I was doing sound for the church and stuff like that.
Next question. Because you said you backslid, time you backslid. What led to that? Like, what do you think
So-
happened? Because we were on fire. We were doing good. What led to that?
So I think as a church kid, you always, at least speaking for myself, you always have a fascination of the world. Because like my sister was saying, this is normal for us. Church is all we've known. I mean, we've known 3 services a week, you revival services, concerts. That's normal to us. So when growing in like junior high, high school and stuff like that, you see your friends and you see what they're doing, all stuff. And all you see is, like, I thank God for my parents that they protected us. You know what I mean?
Yes.
They're like, you're not going to go party. You're not like, no. They saw, when you're looking from a church kid, you see it through like an innocence. What they saw, because they didn't grow up in the church, they saw what the world was offering. You know what I mean? Like they see the destruction that sin brings.
Yeah.
To you just see your friends being able to hang out all night. You know what I mean? Like where their parents just let them do whatever. So I think when I backslid, what led me to is I always had a fascination with the world. So me growing up in the church, when I moved over to San Antonio, I was doing good. You know what I mean? It's like I was serving God or whatever. It was like, to me, it was a fresh start. Like, it's like, okay, going good. But to me, it was always the pull of the world. And what honestly pulled me was like, man, I wanted to get married. I wanted to get married. And so here it is. I'm trying to do right. And in all honesty, none of the Christian girls had interest in me.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, so in my mind, it's like, man, none of the Christian girls, but yet the worldly, they see me as a good, I mean, more their parents, you know what I mean? But they see me as a good catch because it's like, I was working a job. I don't drink. I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not into drugs. I'm not all tatted up being crazy. You know what I mean? I'm a good kid. So in my mind, I was like, man, how come God that they think I'm a good catch, but yeah, I don't have, like none of the Christian girls, I guess, are interested. And so finally what it was is like, man, just what it really comes down to is I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And so when I backslid, it was more, you justify what you want to do. And it was me, is like, I just wanted to go sleep around. And so it was, when I backslid, it was you figure out a justification why you want to do it. And so you can get your pity party and kind of justify why you're leaving. And so whenever you come up with that idea, you kind of stick to your guns about, oh, this is why I'm leaving. But the truth of the matter is I just wanted to go sin. I finally finally got fed up, and I was like, I'm just gonna go do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so I just gave into doing, you know what I mean, just gonna go give into the world.
How long did that go on?
Man, only for about like a year and a half.
Really?
Maybe 2 years, if I remember right.
What was you wrapped up in?
See, and that was the thing, is it was more just relationships. Because I wasn't into drugs. I wasn't into alcohol. I had no desire. To me, even in high school, when I would sneak out or whatever, and I would if I would go to a party, I wouldn't drink.
Mm-hmm. You would sneak out of the house? Mm-hmm. You snuck out of the house?
Yeah. Well, no. So that's a lie. So I wouldn't tell where I was going.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, Daniel had asked me that question, and I was like, I don't think he ever snuck out of the house, because I would have caught him.
Yeah. So this is the thing. So Liz.
Definitely.
So Liz was the blunt, like thinking she can get away. Me, I was such a good kid in my parents' eyes that I could just say, "Oh, I'm gonna go somewhere," and they trusted me.
Oh yeah.
And I would go do something.
Okay.
So that was, so it was different. I didn't have to sneak out. I would just say, "Oh, I'm gonna go hang out with my friends." And my parents were like, "Oh, okay, go ahead." And so I would go.
Comes out now.
Yeah, my poor mom. My poor mom and dad. But it was, so I never had to really sneak around. I wouldn't tell them the whole story where I was going, but but even at that though, like I said, I would never drink, because I've tried it, and I never liked the taste of it. Smoking weed or whatever. I think I smoked out once with Nathan and all of us.
Was that at our OTC, that story?
Yeah, ROTC. we snuck out into the field and we go smoke, and I was just like, didn't do nothing for me. And it was
whack.
It was just like, I don't get what the big. So I had never had any problem telling no. Like like I said, I would go to a party and they're like, "Oh, you want something to drink?" I'm like, "No, I'm good. Like, just I'm good with the soda." You know what I mean? And they would laugh, and I was like, "I'm good." And then smoking out, they with Nathan and all them would go smoke out, and I'm like, I'm good. Like I had no desire, but my thing was always lust. My issue was always girls. That's where sin would pull me, was lust.
All them relationships that you had, did you feel that emptiness?
No, and I didn't even have that many. But it was I didn't have that many. And so, but just the one I had before I was saved, before I came back when I was backsliding, that messed me up, where I was like, because once again, you give in and you're like, man, this was it. That's what you, because I held my virginity until I was 20 something, until I was 24. Like
that's actually pretty powerful.
Yeah, I held it, but I still gave it up. So I still messed up. So they're the ones that are powerful, like John Ocotas, where he kept his virginity all the way to marriage. That's a good one.
Yeah, that's
but powerful. To me, it's like I quit. I gave up at the last minute. I didn't hold on.
So for me, same thing. That's one of the fiery darts that the devil will always kind of like hound me with, was you knew better.
Yeah.
And yet you still did wrong. And the whole, keeping your virginity for when you're married and for your husband. Yeah. Do you get those fiery darts?
Well, not from my husband, from my wife, yes.
Good answer.
But because I knew why we should, right? Like that especially as teenagers and the McCarthys, I remember them having the classes with the youth, Pam having the class with us. I think Pastor McCarthy had a class with the young guys. That, you need to, the reason why we wait, you know what I mean? So the spiritual reasons and all this stuff like this. So I knew, but because I threw my hissy fit and I was like, well, I'm just going to do what I want to do anyways. But now coming back, that has been one of the things that the devil will hound me. Yeah. You know what I mean? About it's like, oh, well, you grew up in church. You should have known better. What kind of Christian really are you? Yeah. Look at because I still regret the example that I was to 4 people in particular: Sonia, Elena, our work people, and Ashley and Courtney. You know what I mean? Because they knew we were a saved family. They knew. And yet when I did backslide, I was a terrible example. I was a hypocrite. Yeah. You know what I mean? All of this stuff. And I really regret the example that I showed them of what a Christian was, because I was still dumb and like, yeah, I go to church. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yet they knew I wasn't really a Christian and stuff like that. Like, does the devil like hound you with that?
So I think when I first came back, it was, a couple of things. The hypocrite part, it was more with my cousins. Derek and Dominic, Clarissa, Juliana, my Uncle Manny, and Tulane. Yeah. Because that's who I was close with. And so they were the ones that really saw the hypocrisy.
Yes.
So for me, it was more, I was living one way, and I don't even know if they caught it, but I knew.
Yes.
And so me saying one thing and totally living opposite, that's what bothered me with them. Because here it is, that, because they were like little brothers. You know what I mean? Like they're like like we hung out. I mean, we were there every day. Like I had them every day. I would pick some, like my Auntie Lane would go pick up one from baseball or something, so I would go pick up the other one. You know what I mean? Like, and so almost every night I was with them. And so they were like, so the hypocrisy was with them. That hit me hard with them. And it's like, man, because here I am living. Remember, I took my ex back to Santa Fe. And so they saw me living a certain way and they see it. And then now it is, now that I'm having to backtrack, and it's like, no, I was wrong. Yeah. But my prayer was when I came back, especially with them, is like, God, help them to see a difference in my life. Help them to see a genuine conversion, because they've seen me live both ways. Yes. And so, and I always pray, like, God, give me open doors to witness to them and to share my testimony. And so sure enough, God's answered it. So here it is. I mean, I remember one time I went back, it was before me and my wife got married. I went back and we went, I was visiting for summer. I think mom and dad were still there. And so I was visiting family, I think, probably for around like Christmas or New Year's. And so we went snowboarding. And so we all went up together, us three. And I remember us talking on the drive up. And I remember Derek asking a couple of questions. And so that gave me the open door to witness. And so, and I've had moments like, so that was one moment. Then when me and my wife got married, we went back to go visit again, and we were there, and we're all there talking. And my cousins, all of my cousins, Derek, Dominic, Juliana, Clarissa, they were all there at the table, and we're building, what do you call it, the Christmas gingerbread houses and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And we're talking, and they were asking me questions, and it was another moment. And so God was answering my prayers, like, especially with them, because that's... because
you were close.
Yeah,
you are close.
That's my close. Like,
so when you were backsliding, you were still praying?
No. So when I was backsliding, I didn't want nothing to do with God.
Oh,
so,
okay.
like, because in my mind, it always kind of blew my mind when I had backsliders wanting to still be involved with people from the church or involved with little things in the church, if that makes sense. Like they would want to come around, because I was the total opposite. I didn't want nothing to do with church. I didn't want nothing to do with anybody. The only one I think I talked to was pastor, or not pastor, was Mr. Rudy. Really? Mr. Rudy would be the only one that I would answer his calls. And so like some other people would try getting a hold of me, and I would just ignore them. I didn't want nothing to do with it. I literally just cut off everybody.
Did he call you pretty often?
Yeah, he would call me. I would say at least, I might be lying, but I want to say it was at least once a month.
That's pretty cool.
But what's crazy is,
did he ever get you? Like, man, be like, man, yeah. Make you think?
No, I don't. He never did. He would always just check up on me.
Oh, okay.
Because I think
that's love.
Because my biggest
awesome.
thing is, how would you say it? Growing up in church, you know a lot. As far as you, like I said, you hear sermons. We've heard great preaching for our whole life. You know what I mean? Like you're talking about 3 times a week hearing great preaching.
Man, that's pretty
and
awesome.
So I knew the right answers, if that makes sense. But like when I came back, one of the things I told the guys, the biggest difference I did when I came back from before I left was I started talking. I talked to my pastor. I would talk to men in the church, like Mr. Rudy or my Bible study leaders. I would talk. Because there's something spiritual that happens that I can't explain other than it's something spiritual. When you talk about something, when you're going through something, you open up to your pastor and you tell him, hey, I'm going through this and this. And pastor would sometimes just say, oh, okay, we'll pray. I'm praying for you. Something breaks. And it's like, it's spiritual, because it's like, yeah, he can tell you exactly what you kind of, when you have a conversation with pastor, you're like, okay, I think he's going to tell me this. And it could be that, but it's something spiritual when you have a conversation with them that breaks. And so I tell people the biggest thing is, and I've told Romeo and John, Jeremiah, Q, like all my buddies, I tell them, like, man, the biggest difference is I talk to pastor, is I open up to pastor or open up to somebody, telling them like, hey, this is what I'm going through. Because my whole thing is, before I backslid, I was always just holding like, I know what they're going to tell me, and I'm just not going to talk. And granted, everybody knew when something was going on, because you know how I typically am when I'm happy-go-lucky, I'm laughing and everything. And so when I would something's going wrong, I would just pull back. And so they would right away know something's up with me. But when they would ask, I would just stay. I live with Mr. Rudy and Miss Lydia.
I'm good.
Yeah, exactly. I would just say I'm good. And so, yeah, I mean, I lived with Mr. Rudy and Miss Lydia. They knew, Mr. Rudy always knew when something was up. And he would ask, he'd always check up on me. Yeah, he'd always ask, like, hey, what's going on? How are you doing? And I would just tell him, like, oh, I'm good. I'm good. I'm fine. I'm good. And
Man,
so,
that's pretty cool. It shows you love like that.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Rudy, I always say he's my San Antonio dad. He's
Man,
always,
that's awesome.
yeah, he's always.
You still talk to him?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Gotta talk to
Mr.
him.
Rudy, yeah. He'll call. Well, we actually just had a conversation before we came to San Antonio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
we talked. And so, yeah, he's always been there for me.
What brought you back?
So what brought me back was so when I backslid, hardened my heart, didn't want nothing to do with God, you kind of get to a point where God finally gets
deals with you.
Well, God's kind of like, okay, you want to give your sin, you can have your sin.
Ooh.
And so there was
That's
a time
scary.
where there was a time where it's like, because when I was backsliding, at first you fight it. You know, on Sundays you're supposed to be in church. You just know. And so you have to fight it. You have to kind of like, you distract yourself.
Yeah.
Wednesdays, driving from work, you know the turn you're supposed to take to go to church. So it was always a fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, but after a while, you get to a point where it's like, okay, you're good. You know what I mean? Like you
Really?
fight it. Yeah, you build a callus on your heart is the best way to kind of put it. And so I finally got to the point where I had a callus, where it was I was doing what I wanted to do and I was fine. At least that's as far as you'd have your moments where you'd fight it, but I built a callus where I was just going through the motions. And so when my grandma passed away, that's when I finally stepped back into church. That was the first time, because I would go to Santa Fe. Liz would always say, hey, are you coming to church? Yeah. And I was like, no, I'm not going. You know what I mean? It's like my parents were like, hey, you going to go to church? And no, I'm not going. But when my grandma passed, that was the first time I actually stepped back into a service, into a church service. And so so I believe, if I remember right, it was my Uncle Joe. He said some words, and some other people said some words, but my Uncle Tom had preached a sermon, and it was about legacy. And he was talking about how my grandma and grandpa, they got saved, and how they fought for things in the family. And how then it made me think, okay, well, my dad got saved, my mom got saved, and how they fought. And at that time, my oldest niece, Catalina, she was, I don't remember how old she was. She was probably like under one.
She was under one.
Yeah, she was under one. She hadn't even hit one. But I remember, so that was the first time, and God started dealing with me. And that was when God finally started, I guess in my mind, it was like God started re-dealing with me about salvation, that I was sin. And I remember thinking, man, if my niece grows up, she's gonna see me like this. Do I want her seeing me like this? Do I want to see?
Powerful.
Do I want to be that
That's awesome,
representative to her? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
is just how do you put it?
You don't want your niece to see
Yeah, to see me
living
like this,
that.
like,
especially when she's very sharp.
oh
I'll give
yeah,
her that.
like, yeah,
I commend y'all, honestly.
they
Daniel,
were
Liz,
far
man.
greater. Those girls are so.
So you
stinking
don't
smart.
want her. You don't want her seeing.
Yeah,
that
when
because
she says
knows.
my uncle, yeah, I don't want her to be like, oh, that's my uncle, and be like, yeah, he does that. You know what I mean? Like that. I didn't want that.
That is powerful.
And so when I came back, God started dealing with me, and I couldn't shake it. And the funny thing is, so I never wanted to talk to anybody. I never, like I said, I didn't want to talk to nobody in church or nothing. But God has a sense of humor, because I never ran into anybody in church. Never. Till this day, I don't think I've ever ran into anybody from church out in public. And I remember running into Naomi. When I was at the mall, and I think it was Nico. It was Nico. And so I remember running into her, and I was like, what the heck? Like, here's Naomi. And so Nico asked, when are you coming back to church? I mean, he's little. Nico's little.
Still bold.
And it was just like a gut wrench. I mean, it was like, because Naomi knows what's up. He doesn't know.
Yeah.
He's like 4 or 5.
Yeah, he's young.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't know, but here he is asking me. And I remember telling him, and I wasn't going to flat out tell him no, because but I was like, we'll see. But I remember him asking. And I think I ran into Naomi twice, and I remember running into my pastor one time. And
Uncle
I remember running into Uncle Benny, my pastor. But I remember running into pastor at the mall. And so it was, I never ran into, I remember running into pastor.
How was that?
So that was, I thank God for my pastor. I have the best pastor in the world. Like, there's things that I've done to my pastor that I'm so ashamed of the way I treated him when I was backsliding. Like,
Man, that's powerful.
yeah, like, yo, because he's known me my whole life.
Yeah.
And so there was one time when I was backsliding, I didn't want nobody in. I didn't want, like I said, I didn't want nobody in the house. I didn't want nobody in the church, right? And I remember one time, I had just bought my house here off of Converse. And I remember my parents were here. I think Liz was here. I think Kat was here.
We were helping you
They're
remodel.
helping me remodel the house. And just like, just paint and touch up. They're just wanting to see the house and stuff like that. Yeah. And I remember my pastor was going to come and go check out the house and stuff like that.
Daddy needed his help with something.
Yeah. And I remember my mom calling me. And she was saying, like, hey, is it fine if pastor comes? And I remember telling him, no, like, he can go, but I don't want him being there when I get home.
Oh, wow.
And I remember getting off of work, going home, and I remember pulling up and opening the door. And I remember my pastor coming downstairs, grabbing his stuff, and telling me, hey, Leonard, it's good to see you. And him walking out the door.
Oh, wow.
But yeah,
That's how hard your heart was.
That was the worst feeling in the world.
That had to hurt, right? Man, that's crazy.
And when I came back and I apologized, and because I remember before I even came back to church, God was dealing with me coming back. And I remember, so it was my niece and stuff like that, and then one of my buddies, a close friend of mine, he backslid. And he texted me or he called me or something. He's like, hey, I'm not going to church no more. And I was like, nah, you lying, man. You're just messing with me. And he goes, no, I'm not going no more. And I was like, whatever. He said, text Mr. Rudy. And so I was like, Mr. Rudy. And so I told him, Mr. Rudy says you're lying. He goes, no, you didn't text Mr. Rudy. And so I finally, I called Mr. Rudy. I'm like, hey, is so-and-so not coming no more? And he goes, no, he's not coming. And I remember the God dealing with me then about like, and it was just like, man, if you be living for God, you'd be helping your friend live. Because I knew I was going to hell. Nobody had to tell me I was going to hell. I knew I was going to hell. I don't care who you are. You backslide. You can justify what you're wanting to do. But what it comes down to is you want to do what you want to do, and you're going to justify it by whatever means, but you know you're going to hell. Like if once you get saved and have a genuine relationship with God, you know right and wrong. I know the God I serve, and I know he pulls for me. You know what I mean? Like he's pulling for you to make it. So he's not just going to let you go without him convicting you. And so when he left and all that stuff, God was dealing with me. It's like, man, it's like, here it is, one of my best, my best friend. He was my best friend. Like we were connected at the hip. Wherever he was, I was. You know what I mean? Like I was with him all the time. And when he backslid, I remember that was another moment where I think that was the final straw where I was like, man, I need to get my heart right. And I remember going, like it was like a weekday. I remember calling Pastor and saying, hey, Pastor, can I talk to you? And I remember going, and I remember going into his office and him just talking and I just apologizing for just the way I've treated him, my Aunt Peggy. And it's like, man, and he didn't even say nothing. He was like, oh, it's fine. And he just prayed with me. And I always knew he was there. He was always there for us. Mm-hmm. Even when I was backsliding, I knew without a shadow of a doubt if I needed something, Pastor would be there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so sure enough, when I came back, I talked to him, and he prayed with me in his office, and he's like, come out to church, and he's like, I think they're having, I forgot the gentleman's name, but they had a guest speaker that Sunday, and I remember having to make some decisions, because at the time, my girlfriend at the time, she was living with me. And I remember having to make some decisions, and I made those decisions then and there. And but I remember one of the things coming back was the devil assaulting my mind, like, what are people going to think of you? Mm-hmm. Because here it is, it's like me growing up in church, knowing right and wrong, me failing and all this stuff, and just kind of like I said, I didn't want nothing to do with anybody. I didn't want no reminders of God. I wanted to totally just block that out. And I remember coming in on Sunday morning and the devil just throwing that in my mind the whole time, just coming like, oh, the people are going to look down on you. You failed and all this stuff.
Yep.
And I remember coming in, and Pastor Roger hadn't gotten sent out yet. And I think he was ushering because he was right at that door. You know, when you first walk into the mother church, you walk in that first door to your right to get into the sanctuary. Because I showed up right at song service.
Okay.
I showed up right at song service.
Right on time.
Right on time. Right when the song service started.
You didn't want to talk to
I didn't want to talk to. No, I just wanted to go to church, but I didn't. I don't know how to explain it. I just wanted to go, and yeah, I just remember walking in Roger there, and I remember him just giving me a hug.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I remember then that, and that was just the devil. That was just a lie from hell because nobody treated me bad.
Did all those like mind battles just go?
So it broke a little bit.
You walk in there.
For me, it broke a little bit before, because I remember that morning making that decision to go to church. The devil was assaulting, but I remember having a moment where the devil was assaulting my mind, and I believe it's from God that He just said, man, the people that talk bad about you, those weren't your friends anyways. The people that really genuinely love you, they'll be happy that you're there, because
That's awesome.
because that they know that's right for you to be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And granted, when I got to church, nobody treated me bad. I mean, nobody. Everybody welcomed me.
Everybody was
open
happy
arms.
to see you. Huh?
Yeah, everybody was happy to see me.
Was you happy to see them?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's awesome.
There were certain people because, I mean John and Mr. Daniel Acorta. He was, so like I said, I wasn't talking to anybody or anything like that. But I remember when I bought my house, I had to get some paperwork signed, and so I was using an address and all that stuff. And so I remember having to come, and I had to talk to pastor about getting some stuff or whatever. And so I came. I was gonna go by on a Saturday, and I remember showing up, and of course it's a car wash, so everybody's there. I didn't want to see anybody, but here everybody's there. And so I remember getting out, and I was like, crud. And so I'm making my way, and I know people are gonna want to talk to me. But I remember Cassandra, her running up to me and saying hi. And I remember, and then, so she was one that I remember vividly, like her coming up and being excited to see me. And then I remember Daniel Acorta, him coming that same day, him coming up and shaking my hand and saying it was good to see me. And so when I came in on that Sunday, this was months down the road when I got my heart right. But when I came back, everybody was happy to see me. And it wasn't.
Thank God for people like that. Just the friendliness and the true caring for people. You know what I mean, in the church, which is an example of whatever. Either coming from out in the world and maybe coming in and backsliding and then coming back, and who knows what the mind games are you're going through. The devil lying to you, but even so, church kids. You know what I mean, like. Yes, you made a mistake. Yes, were you dumb? Absolutely. But people love you. God loves you. You know what I mean? And it's going to be okay. But if you don't have those people who are there to welcome you, you know what I mean? Like, that messes up a church. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it's like, thank God for people like that. Yeah. Because I think, it made life, everybody welcomed me up where I didn't feel no awkwardness. Everybody was talking to me, and like, it was crazy. You just kind of picked up, sort of. Yeah, you picked up where you left off. Yeah, and everybody just welcomed me back, and it was just genuine love. Yeah, man. It was like awesome. It was honestly like I never left. That's really awesome. They welcomed me back, and I have the best mother church. Did you come back like on fire? Like, all right, I know I got to go through the steps again, but man, I'm gonna go back, man. I'm gonna be better than ever. Did you come back like that? No, in all honesty, I was glad just to be back. Okay, and I knew my heart was right with God. And I remember going through certain battles and stuff like that, and I remember having to fight. And I remember just the main one, one of the key moments, me coming back, is I remember going through some stuff in my mind, and here I am in an empty house again, and the devil starts assaulting my mind and stuff like that. And I remember just praying in my living room. And I remember just making the decision, God, no matter what happens, no matter if I get married, no matter if whatever, you know what I mean? It was a moment where I was like, it doesn't matter what happens, I'm serving you. And it was just a one-on-one moment with God where it's just like something broke in my living room. And I remember just worshiping God and just praying and just worshiping. And I was just walking back and forth in my living room. And it was just one of those moments where it's like something broke, where it's like, it doesn't matter what happens, I'm serving God. Praise God. And can I ask what the battle was? It was more just the battle coming back so having a relationship and then coming into a house that was empty. So
and just
like
the
loneliness?
loneliness. Yeah. So coming back, so leaving and everything, and then here it is. You come back home and you're lonely, and it's like, man, it's like I had somebody. You know what I mean? And so the devil was throwing it in my mind, like, oh yeah, you had somebody. Now you're gonna be alone by yourself. And so it was one of those things where it's kind of like, well, even if I'm alone by myself, I know I'm right with God, and it doesn't matter what happens. But the crazy thing was, is 6 months later, my wife walks in the door. And so, well, she wasn't my wife at the time, but she walks in. Like it was like a couple, like 6 months or a couple months later, she walks in.
Yeah.
And so she walks in the door, but it
How'd
was.
that go? Did you see her and you was just like, man, there she is.
Yeah. she was wearing a gray, what do they call it?
Dang, he remember.
Oh, I remember it because I was in the back and she walked in the side door and she was wearing scrubs. That's what they call it, a little uniform for the dentist. She was wearing gray scrubs and she sat on the right-hand side towards the back.
Okay.
So I remember her walking in. Yeah.
Oh.
Could you not keep your eyes off of her or something? Like, man,
I was
that's
trying
her.
to. I was just kept looking.
That's her. I know that's her.
I was like, she's here. She's here. I was like, at that moment, I knew.
Oh, man.
Love at first sight.
Yeah. But yeah, but yeah, it was just crazy. But it was one of those things because I remember my mom telling me when I was back, saying, how can you tell somebody you care for them and you love them when you're leading them to hell?
Oh, yeah.
She's like, how can you tell them? She's like, that's not love. That's not love. Oh, yeah, it hurt.
Oof.
And so I remember.
She told me something very similar to that too. Yeah.
And so that always stuck with me. And so I always tell, I was like, man, God, the reason, and looking back, is like God didn't give you one of his daughters because he didn't trust you. You just wanted to get married. You didn't have a relationship with God, a genuine relationship with God. It was more just
powerful.
Because you always think of it as far as your side is like, oh, God, how come you're not giving me what I want? And it's like, no, he not only does he care for you, he cares for his daughter too. So if he can't trust you with his daughter, why is he going to give you a daughter? You know what I mean? Like, why is he going to give you one of his daughters that he loves more than anything to get married when he can't trust you to treat her right or to lead her right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
and so
powerful.
Looking back, I was like, that's why God did. Because my heart wasn't in the right spot. My vision wasn't in the right spot. If that makes sense. I thought God owed me something because I was living a good.
Yes.
I thought he owed me something.
That was we really haven't like talked to like in depth about it, but that was my thing too.
Yeah.
When I backslid I was like, that's not fair. I was saved. I deserved him.
Yeah.
I deserved him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I was good. You know what I mean? Like I thought he was the one. You know what I mean? So it's like.
Yeah, that was literally it. Is that in my mind? I'm like, here it is, God. I've stayed true where I kept my virginity for 24 years. You owe me something.
Dang.
And God didn't owe me jack.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, but it was just stupidity. It was
Man, that's crazy. So how did you and Miss Alexis? So what'd you do? Did you go out there and you preach a healing crusade? And she was just like, ooh.
She's like, ooh, pray for me. I'm not feeling good.
Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you, Jesus. God is good.
I want him to pray for me.
No.
I think she had a crush on him from earlier before when he was saved. Before you backslid, I think she had told me that like she had seen him at some event or something like that, and she was like,
It was an outreach.
It was an outreach.
It was actually for Pastor Luis.
Oh wow!
It was an outreach for Pastor Luis. Yeah, but she'll tell you that.
Shout out Pastor Luis.
Yeah,
we love you.
Yes, we do. We do.
But yes, but no. As far as with my wife, so I actually remember. So even before she came into the church, I remember seeing her. So the South Texas Conference, I would get there. So the company I used to work for, you'd work 4 9s, half day Friday. And so I remember I would work my 4 9s, half day Friday. After I'd get off, I'd go straight to Pastor Ruby's and I would wait in line and to get a good seat. You know what I mean? And so I remember her and her family, she pulled up, she dropped off, now I know his name, but it was Jeremiah. They had the little seats, like, the little picnic chairs, whatever. So she pulled up, she got the chair out, he sat down, and I think she went back to the car to go sleep or whatever. But that was the first time I saw her. Like I first saw her. And then so when she came to the church, when they came to the mother church, then I was like, oh, I recognized her, and I was like, oh, you know what I mean? I recognized her from that time. And then just through fellowship and stuff like that, that's when we started talking. And then the first time, so we were talking, just kind of like just friends, everybody hanging out. And then she was going to turn 21, and she was going to go skydiving. So that was my end. I was like,
That
hey,
video, that
Yeah,
Pastor Ruby.
that was it?
That was
Pastor
it.
Richie.
Pastor Richie.
Richie?
Sorry. Pastor Richie.
That was it.
Leonard was in the background,
That was-
and then
yeah.
he was in the plane in one of the shots. Yeah.
So me and Pastor Richie jumped, and my wife and my sister-in-law, they jumped in the other plane. So it was two each going up. So they went together, and then me and Pastor Richie went up. But that was the time that we started. So I told her, when you guys go, let me know. I want to go with you guys. And so I was communicating through Jeremiah, and then all of a sudden, she said, I'll just talk to him. I'll connect him. So she got my number from Jeremiah.
Got cornered.
Yeah. And so that's when we started. So she started. But yeah, that was, I think, when we really, started talking. We weren't courting at the time, but that's when we really started talking. Like, I think, because after that, I think is when I talked to Pastor saying, hey, I want to talk to Alexis. And I think that's when I can't remember if I think I talked to Pastor Richie first, and then I talked to her. I can't remember how that went, but I talked to both of them about wanting to talk. I think it was Pastor Richie first, if I remember right. Yeah, it was Pastor Richie.
Cool.
Yeah,
That's
it was
respectful.
Pastor Richie, because I remember him talking to you at home. Yeah, so I talked to Pastor Richie, asked him permission. I think he said, well, I'm sure he said it's okay because I asked you.
It's too late now.
Yeah, it's too late now. Way too late now. 2 grandkids later. But yeah, I asked him permission, and he said that's fine. And so then I asked her. I pulled her aside, I think on a Wednesday night after service, and asked her, hey,
How'd that go?
What did you say? What did you say?
Yeah,
oh,
how'd
no.
that go?
I have no
what's
game.
up?
Let me say that. I have no smooth talk whatsoever. I think I was stumbling over my words. I was like, hey, I just want to talk to you. But yeah, I just remember pulling her to the side saying, hey, I like you, and then see if we can at least talk and get to know each other a little bit more. And so if that's fine with you or whatever. And she was like, yes, please. No, I just
Like, I've been waiting on this.
you finally asked me.
Yes.
But no, and then we started talking, and I think we were courting for 6 months. I think it was 6 months and then before we got engaged, I think it was 6 months, then we got engaged. Yeah.
And we're going to show it now. Engagement. No, just kidding.
I was like, are you serious? I was like, no.
You shocked
I was
them.
like, what are you talking about?
You can't shock the guests.
Yes, you can. With your brother, you can.
like,
No,
yeah.
we actually got it on film. I think your mama, Miss Rachel, is the
No,
that
it
filmed
was because Miss Rachel brought me the flowers.
Oh, that is
Because
right.
I
that is
proposed
right.
at the church.
Yeah, he
Oh,
did
okay.
in front
I
of
proposed
the
at the
in front of the
church.
church.
Was she
That's
crying?
very sweet.
Was
She
she
wasn't
crying?
here.
No, I
Oh,
wasn't
you
here.
weren't
Yet.
They weren't
No,
here.
we were in
Okay.
New Mexico.
It was July 5th.
Oh, okay.
July 5th is when I proposed.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
so, yeah, it was at the church. But I can't remember. I think it was probably John or Jeremiah that was recording.
They tricked the whole church. They were like, "It's so and did they say it was your birthday?"
Yeah. So you know how everybody goes, oh, it's so-and-so's
Yeah.
birthday. Let's sing him happy birthday.
Yeah.
And so they're like, hey, it's Leonard's birthday. John, yeah, it was John. Because I think John would go, hey, it's Leonard's birthday. And that's when everybody, of course, looks at me. And I'm like, no, it's not my birthday. And then that's when I started saying we've been dating. I think I said 10 years instead of 10 months or something like that. Or
Yeah.
something
he
like
was
that. I was
So
nervous. and
nervous.
I was nervous. And so, yeah, and then I asked her, and she said yes. And
in the video. She goes, "No, just kidding." No, she didn't.
she's like, I guess.
Might as
Why
well.
not? Sure. Yeah.
You went through all this trouble.
You might as well throw you a bone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No. She said yes.
Yeah. But
Yeah, we have that on video, which is nice, right? Like we were able to still laugh and see it and look
Yeah.
at it and like, oh, this is how Leonard proposed. Like,
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
in the church, which right, like
yeah, in the
it's good-
church.
Good.
Yep. That's where we met. That's where we proposed. Yep.
So after you got married, how did that accelerate your ministry?
So, man, right after we got married, so we were courting for like a year and a half because she was trying to finish up her schooling. And so we knew we had talked, okay, once she finishes her prerequisites or whatever, then we'd get married. Mm-hmm. And so we had a long engagement just because we were waiting for her to graduate. But once she graduated, we got married. Man, it was, I think, I'm trying to remember. It was right away. I think Pastor asked us to become Bible study leaders because I think Pastor William had just got sent out that July. We got married in May. He got sent out, I believe, in July to Dallas. And so then we became Bible study leaders. And then, man, we were Bible study leaders for, I don't even remember how long. And then Pastor Alfaro got sent out. And then Pastor asked us to be door directors. And so it was quick. It was quick. But it was, like I always tell everybody, it's like, yeah, you have more responsibility, but it's something that everybody should be doing anyways. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
As far as like ministry, as far as becoming door director and all that stuff, it was stuff that I was already doing. The only thing difference was that I was scheduling like the outreaches and scheduling the concerts and ordering flyers and just like more responsibility. But as far as everything else, I mean, outreaches, you know what I mean? You're there anyways. You know what I mean? Like a prayer, you're there.
Yeah.
So the only difference was it was just, if I remember right, it was just ordering the flyers and just scheduling stuff and a little bit more different responsibility. But yeah, it was quick.
Is there anything that like sticks out to you that, okay, when you guys got married, when you did it right, is there anything that sticks out that you were like, this is what God wanted it to be? Like, is there anything
that stuck out? No, it was just more the satisfaction of knowing that what we did was right in God's eyes.
Okay.
And knowing that there was a blessing on it. So
That's
as
awesome.
far as anything stuck out right away, no. But it was more the satisfaction knowing that, okay, God, I'm doing right in your eyes. Like, because I've already messed up before.
Right.
And so it's like, no, I'm going to do it right. And
how was that? Like, obviously you talked with her and you told her, like, what was she like, like, was that like something, well, I guess I could ask her that when it's her video, but was that something that you were like, that you were afraid? Like, did the devil ever play with your head? Like, oh, she's not going to want you.
No, because I think, I forgot how she found out, but she found out pretty early. I think even before recording, I think she might have found out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so it was, I don't remember exactly when, but no, I was up front right away.
Okay.
Because it was just, for me, it's less of a burden trying to hold on to something, knowing eventually you're going to have to tell him something.
Right.
Does that make
right.
sense?
Yes. No. Yeah.
It's like, I want a clean conscience.
Yeah.
So it was easier for me just to get out in the open right off the bat.
Do you think there was any like walls with you, like because of past stuff and because of?
No, because I always looked at it as I was in the wrong because I knew better.
Okay.
So I always looked at it as not so much walls with her or putting walls up because I was in the wrong. And so my whole thing was I need to do it right this time. And so I don't think it was any walls or anything like that. It was more just doing it, make sure I do it right, make sure I treat her the way she needs to be treated, the way she deserves to be treated.
Okay.
That's
powerful.
And so that was, because like I said, the whole thing like with what Mom said, in my mind that always resonated is like, okay, if I say I love this girl and I want to marry her, you better treat her right.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And
yeah. Absolutely.
so that was my whole thing, is knowing God was happy the way I was living, the way I was doing it, knowing my pastor and all that stuff. And that was a whole nother thing as far as courting, man. My poor pastor, because I was so nervous. It's like, man, is this really the right? Am I making the right decision and all this stuff? Like I said, I would get off half days on Fridays. I knew pastor was at the church half day.
You'd
And
corner
so I
him.
would always go, poor pastor, every Friday I was always going and talking to him. And so he would always, when I would think like, oh man, we had a fight. Like, is this God telling us like, no. And pastor would be like, Leonard, it's okay. Like it's normal. You know what I
You're
mean?
reading too much into things.
Yeah, I was too worried about it. And so pastor would kind of bring correction. Like, no, it's fine. You got a good, just certain things, different characters and stuff like that, personalities. As far as like with me, pastor would have to reel me in. It's like, Leonard, you're okay. God, it's fine.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. So, but yeah, as far as like, I think that was the main thing, is like just the fact that I knew that I was doing it the way that God wanted us to do it. That was a blessing.
Praise God. How is it pioneering?
So pioneering, when we got sent out,
you're freshly launched. How long you been launched for?
so actually a year today.
Really?
We left a year
Wow.
today.
Congratulations.
Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Right after Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving, we
Packed up.
packed up, and then I'm lying.
Well, we packed up on Friday.
We packed up on
and you
Friday.
left on
We
Saturday.
left on Saturday, so almost a year, 364 days.
Now I have a question. How you know you're leaving?
Yeah,
You know you're going to get launched out.
yeah,
You know you're going to Pioneer.
yeah.
How is that when you're leaving your church?
So
What are you feeling?
so
Because you're leaving, like,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh man, I love these people. And what are you feeling?
So for me, it was, so you get the whole excitement when getting announced at conference. You're like, everybody's just cheering.
I was there.
And you're like, oh, yeah.
I was.
And so everybody's like clapping. You're like, oh, yeah, you're living on cloud nine. And I loved it. Like, it was going up. It was something that I was like, okay. It was one of those things or chapters like, okay, God, like, this is what you called me to do. Like, another chapter in your life. It's like, okay. And I remember, I know everybody was happy. Everybody was, I mean, my phone, I made the mistake of taking my phone up on stage with me, and everybody's just blowing up my phone. Like, the whole time I'm up there, I feel it. And I know they see me, so, but like, they're just blowing up my phone because everybody was happy. You know what I mean? And so that knowing everybody was happy and proud of me made me happy also. You know what I mean? Okay. I was like, so there's the excitement of that. And so coming back, getting stuff in order, getting the house ready, telling my job and all that stuff that we're going to be going. That was a blessing in itself. They transferred me over to Houston branch and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so, there was the excitement, but I think my farewell service was the sad part. Cause here it is. I'm telling everybody goodbye. Mm-hmm. Like, granted, I'm not dying, but it's a fact that, like you said, here it is, my family. Cause I was blessed enough. Like, people, I think some people take for granted your church family. Because when I came over from Santa Fe, this is all I had. You know what I mean? Like, my family's back in Santa Fe, so the church family is all that I got. And so they've always taken care of me. They've always been good to me. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so knowing that I was leaving, I was like, okay, it hurts. Because here it is, like I said, Mr. Rudy, Miss Lydia, my buddies, all my friends. You know what I mean? Like, I'm leaving all of them. And so, but I know God's called me to it. Yeah. So it's kind of a balance. It's like, man, you get sad, but it's like, okay, you know, you're stepping into the chapter. There's the excitement of going into the unknown, where it's like, okay, this is what, it's an adventure. It really is an adventure. And so it's like, okay, this is what God's called me to do. And so it's like, what's going to happen? You know what I mean? What's going to turn out? And so because we've gotten words. Me and my wife have gotten tons of word of what God's going to do in Houston. So it's more now, it's like, okay, we can't wait to see what happens. But it was, you're sad to leave your family. You know what I mean? You're sad to leave the people here in the mother church. Mm-hmm. But you had the excitement, but there was still a part of you that you were going to miss them. You know you're going to miss them. But I think it didn't really hit me until we got to Houston. And so I had we packed up on Friday. We drove out on Saturday. And so everybody, we had a good group.
Yeah, you had a big group.
Yeah, we had a big group. I mean, all my buddies were there and all that. John, Romeo, Jeremiah, Q. I think Mr. Peter and Ms. Rachel were there. Yep. My family was there. And so we had a good group unloading us. And so I remember just unloading everything into the apartment. And, and then I remember just all the chaos. And then when everybody left, and we went to a barbecue place, we ate. And then from there, everybody left. And I remember going back to the apartment, and I was like, okay.
It's real.
And this is real. Because now it's like, I know that it's just us here.
Yeah.
And so that was the moment where it hit me. I was like, okay, here we go. You know what I mean? Like, that was the time I was like, okay, we're doing this.
Is it a struggle now?
As far as what?
Like pioneering, getting
going
and plowing the field?
Yes, but I think there's a blessing, like, because Alex and Lauren got sent out that same conference. So I think it's a blessing for me, is because I always talk to Alex. I'll kind of touch base with Alex and say, like, see how things are going, stuff like that. And so it's a reassuring thing to know that you're not the only one that's gone through it. Like, I called Pastor Luis one time, because just asking some questions and stuff like that, and Pastor Luis just laughs and he goes, that's pioneering. And so it's that reassuring. It's like, okay, this is the norm. Okay. Like, it's nothing out of the ordinary what you're feeling.
Is that uplifting when people?
Oh, yeah. It makes sure, it takes a burden off you, because at least with me, because, I mean, I think with everybody, it's like, oh, you don't want to fail. You know what I mean? And it's like, and I remember that was one of the things, is I always like, man, if I get sent out, what if I fail and all this stuff? And I remember my pastor talking to me, and he goes, Leonard, he's like, you just need to do what God's called you to do. And he's like, because he'd always tell me about Jeremiah and Jonah. Yeah. Like, here you have Jeremiah, he was obedient, didn't seem much, but he was obedient, had a right heart. And here you have Jonah, sees a whole city get saved, but yet his heart was still kinked. You know what I mean? And so a pastor would always reassure me with that. He's like, Leonard, just do what God's called you to do. Amen. And leave the results up to him. And so that was always reassuring, but you know, at that moment you're reassured, but then time goes on, you're like, oh, you're struggling again. So those moments were like Pastor Luis, and I thank God for Pastor Luis, because he's somebody that's always been able to, I can call. You know what I mean, all the guys I can call, I know all of them have said, hey, if you ever need, I mean, that's what I love about not only like our mother, all our sister churches, all the grandbaby churches and all that stuff, it's like, man, they've always, from the get-go, they've always said, hey, if you need anything, you know what I mean? And I know that they mean it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can call them anytime.
It's not fake.
It's genuine. But I Pastor Luis, I've called Pastor Luis a lot.
Yeah,
And he's always,
you know.
But
Shout
yeah,
out.
he's always taking care. Like he's always talked and stuff like that. And like I said, it's something spiritual when you talk and it breaks something. You know what I mean? Whatever mind battles you're going through and you get clarity on something, it breaks. And it's kind of like a refreshing. It's like, okay, here we go again. Like it breaks whatever battle you're going through. It breaks. But yeah, I mean,
That's awesome.
It's a little bit of a struggle, but it's like I said, it's an adventure. It's like you risk so much doing stuff out in the world. It's like, oh, this is something you can't wait to see what God does.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it.
Oh, I know.
Man.
We're so excited. We're so yeah, just like, oh,
Yeah.
so
Man.
excited for them to see what God's gonna do in that city
I
and
wanna
through you
see.
guys. And
Yeah, I can't wait to go back.
Yeah. Oh, I need to talk to your pastor about saying that team.
so I want you guys
Yeah,
out there.
I need an outreach specialist.
Well, thank you, Pastor Leonard.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. And
Pastor Leonard.
before we end, do you have any words of encouragement? Do you want to, encourage somebody? Are you
Pastor's
everything
kid.
that
Church
we
kid.
just heard, which is powerful, man? You just heard it, y'all. Man, this is another church kid. Still thought that he could find what he needed in the world, but he found out he needed Jesus all along.
Yep.
Do you have any words of encouragement for somebody that's like maybe a church kid that's there that's like, hey, I think I can find what I'm looking for out there?
Yeah, to me, it's just don't fall for the lie. It's like the devil's always going to tell you that, you know what, the world has something better to offer. And it's like, as a church kid, that's the constant battle, that the world has something better for you, that your parents are trying to hold you back from having the fun or something like that. And the thing is don't fall for that lie like I did. Because the truth is you don't know what's going to happen. Like, I thank God that I always had the opportunity to come back with not too many scars and stuff like that. But the truth is you're not guaranteed tomorrow. You're not guaranteed a time to come back. You know what I mean? It's like you don't know when you're going to step into eternity. And so my friends that we all like a bunch of us had backslid, and some of them committed suicide. Some are still hooked on drugs. Some of them, they have their own crazy theologies. And so you're not guaranteed to come back. I think some people think that, I can backslide and come back. And I thank God that I was able to, but that's not always the case. And that you're not guaranteed. You never know when you're going to step into eternity. Yeah. So my biggest thing is, just keep on fighting. Don't fall for the lie. Don't give in. To me, I think with my testimony, it's like, don't give up. If you're a virgin, you need to hold on to that.
Yes.
And give that to your spouse, because that's something that you can never take back. Yeah, spiritually, God can restore, but you need to fight for what's right, and don't fall for the lie that the world has something better to offer. Yep. I think that's the biggest thing.
Amen. Thank you for those words.
Thank you, sure.
That is awesome. So, thank you again for being here with us, man.
Thank you for having me.
We enjoyed it. Thank you, co-host. You did awesomely. Yes, she's one of our other new co-hosts. So, man, that's another episode.
I need a name like you guys, though.
Do you?
Yeah,
We'll get you one.
Okay.
We'll figure it out. Hey, you got a name for her?
I got a lot of names for it. But nothing that we're going to use on this.
To be continued.
Told you he's a brat.
Well, that's another episode. Life Speaks. Y'all tune in, man, and drop us a like, and we'll catch y'all on the next one. Thank you for joining us.
Me, I wrote it in a diary. She found my diary and she told my parents. This is all while they're at conference. Man. And now looking back, it's like, oh my gosh, poor parents, because they're over there trying to hear from God, and I'm over there being a little devil, lying. And
in charge of your siblings.
So my parents had called me, and I remember, my mom was crying, and she was like, you broke my trust, and that just like killed me.
Oh man.
And then I remember my dad getting on the phone, and he told me, he's like, you know what, if you want to go out and do your own thing, he's like, you can move out if that's what you want. I remember telling my mom and sister, I was like, oh, he's cute, I like him. I was 13. So he was probably 19 at the time, right?
You, bro.
So I told my mom, and she was like, girl, he's too old old for you. Like,
Because you guys are 8 years apart?
6.
6. Oh, okay.
I had ignored the phone call. She called me and I was so upset I ignored it.
Yeah.
Because I was mad. And she kept calling, and then she left a voicemail. And, I just heard her frantic on the phone that she was frantic. She was saying, Jeremiah got in a car accident, and I just started crying because I didn't know all the details. And it hit me like around February when it just felt like the whole world was like caving in because, we were in an apartment and we had some issues like with hot water. I wasn't getting hot water. I was pregnant. So I was emotional and I was missing my friends. We would live stream and I'd see the song service and I would start crying. Because you take it for granted when you're in the mother church, that you have a song service where you feel God's presence and you're surrounded with everybody.
Yeah.
Then you go out there and, you're visiting these other churches that are lukewarm and you do not experience that same feeling at all. It's totally different.
Yeah.